The culmination of this particular trip was doing time-lapse photography over these beautiful trees, and I needed to The culmination of this particular trip was doing time-lapse photography over these beautiful trees, and I needed to find a piece of hero music. Very, very difficult to do. It was a really, I imagine I took probably many hours to find this piece of music. I think it works well. I want you to watch it now and associate emotions to it. Specific words. Think of specific words that this scene brings to life. It's down and the moon is up, and the time lapse is still working, and we've had a marvelous time shooting pictures. Now, believe it or mournful, there's a certain, to me, the word was longing. I expressed earlier how I loved the place, how it was just, there are few places on earth that give me such a thrill being at. And that was the emotion. That was the emotion that I was trying to find. And the music has a calmness. And it's an interesting thing. It's very positive. It's not lonely. It's not mournful. But there is a longing, isn't there? So this is something I call the dig deep method. Write down the emotion that you want to create, and then write down specifics. In other words, sub-emotions. So sad? Nah, not really sad. Melancholy? Yeah, it's melancholy. Write down melancholy. Disappointment? No. But that would be a good word, wouldn't it? So if it's disappointment, write down the word disappointment. In this case, it was longing. But what I'm saying is that if it was disappointment, if it was sad, it was disappointment. Why is it disappointed? You were let down by somebody. You were cheated. Okay, cheated. That's a good word. Cheated. Lied to. These are emotions, aren't they? If that's the emotion you're trying to create, write those down. Write those words down. Then go and look for the music. In this particular one, I knew in my head that the word was longing, but it wasn't sad longing. It wasn't disappointment longing. It was positive longing. That's what I got out of that piece of music. So as a filmmaker, you have to decide what emotion you want to bring to the party. But here's the thing. Be very, very, very specific as you possibly can, and understand that I've done this a long time. I'm fairly accomplished at it. I spend a long time looking for a piece of music. A long time. It can be 3 hours. And then I go and look somewhere else because I'm not having, I spend, and sometimes, no. And I'll walk away from it and try the following day with a new kind of head space. All right. It's not easy. Don't expect to find it quickly. We're going to wrap up this one on the piece of music that I chose for the very final piece. the end of this episode was the end of the series, and I wanted to, and one of the elements in the series which carried through quite strongly was still photography. It was an expedition to find wild animals in Africa, and we did find a lot of beautiful wild animals in Africa. And my friend Jeremy and I, we photographed the animals, and after now seeing the time lapse that I had photographed, I now wanted to share with the audience some of the photographs we had taken during the entire trip. What a music to put with it. Man, this was not easy. It really wasn't easy, because these are still photographs. So, you know, this is a challenge. Music, finding the right music is a challenge, because if right at the end here I had found the wrong music and the music had clashed, the entire series just would have been just, you know, flat in its face, and it took me days to find this piece of music. But the interesting thing is that when I found it, I knew it. I just said yes. I just knew it. So here's the thing. If you get a piece of music and you think, yeah, okay, cool. You put it in the timeline and you run it and you think, yeah, I'm not sure. Then you are right. Then you are right. Believe yourself. You are right. If you're saying, yeah, no, I'm not sure, then it's wrong. You'll know. You will know. Okay. But again, use the dig deep method. Write down the words. Look for music that makes you feel that specific way. Then put it with your timeline and see what happens. Let's have a look at this. We'll discuss it after we've looked at it.
Hi, I'm not a photographer.
Oh, fear not the cold, for it will shed and fall, and we were young and bold. We had our secret. Oh, look your shades and see the seedlings now a tree, and all that's wild is free, and so are we now. Remember we were friends, and that I loved you.
So that difficult for me to come up with specific emotions on that one, because this is not a science. It had the right positive feeling. I liked the fact that it had a female vocal. I liked the fact that it was very gentle. It was meaningful but gentle. It wasn't. The last thing I wanted to do was to overpower my audience, because I wanted them to appreciate the photographs. This was about the photographs. And I didn't want to detract from that. I don't think the music does detract from that. I also added in sound effects. The reason for the sound effects, again, it brings the audience back to real life. I put in the sound effect of the jackal. I put in sound effects of a hyena. I put in sound effects of the hippo, of all of those things that, if you had watched the whole series, it'll bring them back to life. Sound effects are incredible things to make the mind work and to create emotion in the head. They are so powerful. Okay, so never, as I said before, never think that by replacing sound effects with music is a good idea. It very, very rarely is. In fact, if in doubt, just go with the sound effects. They are far more powerful, probably more powerful than you think. I hope that helps. More to come. If you want to take your storytelling skills further, I suggest the masterclass. If you have been on YouTube, you must have seen them advertised as masterclass.com. I have been devouring their courses, and most of them, or so far 4 of them, brilliant, all of them. One I would recommend, Ron Howard, in directing and storytelling. The other one, Hans Zimmer, on music. And what I want to do is, I've made a few notes here that I want to summarize that I found extremely valuable. There are no stupid questions. Okay, the best storytellers in the world are the ones that ask the most questions, and they will ask questions of their actors. They will ask questions of the people they're interviewing. They'll ask questions of the technicians around them. They will suck it all up. Learn how to listen. Learn how to listen. Hans Zimmer, talking about music, said, "Do the colors in the music match the colors on the scene?" I love that expression. He's of course talking about the emotion and the way things that appear make you feel. Match the two. All right. Don't play to the gallery. If you've got lots of people around you, you're not trying to please them. If you are a director and you're storytelling, you are in charge. This is your day. This is your time. So while you're doing an enormous amount of listening, don't play to the gallery. Okay. If you're working with actors and you're inexperienced working with actors, take acting classes. By taking acting classes and understanding how actors work and understand how the language they use, because remember, that's dealing with people, and dealing with people is always difficult. It's always a challenge to deal with people. Take acting classes and understand their psyche, where they're coming from. Enormously valuable. When filming actors that are not experienced, get the camera away from them. A camera that is very, very close and very intimate, all right, is going to feel intimidating to an inexperienced actor. Use a longer lens and get the camera further away from them. It will help subconsciously. It will help them feel less pressured into performing. All right, just move the camera a little bit further away. In terms of the structure of your stories, is there a question being asked? Question is always a great thing to do. Ask a question and then decide when to answer it and how to answer it. But if a question is left hanging, your audience is left leaning forward, waiting for an answer. Okay. Sequences in storytelling are like chapters in a book, right? They kind of need a beginning and a middle and an end, even in their small way. So think of them like story arcs in a book, chapters in a book. All right, each must be self-contained and relate immediately to those that follow. You understand what I'm saying? And each sequence ideally should lead to something else in the mind of the viewer. Again, keeping them leaning forward. Storytelling is for me personally, in all the work that I do, when I'm telling a story about something or someone, it gives me enormous pleasure. So to conclude this course, I'm now going to show you a video that I produced very recently. It's now, at this moment, March 2020. And I produced it as a tribute and a thank you to a friend of mine who has who's done a lot of good for me on a personal level and also on a business level. And I've known him for a long time. And he deserved, because he's extremely good at what he does, he deserved his story told. And I told the story. And what I had here was a person that I had a personal relationship with. That was important. A personal relationship. How do you tell that personal story? Think about that. Think about how I opened the film. I wanted to open with something that would establish him, me, our relationship, and in this particular case, it was humorous. And if you start with something that is humorous, then keep it light-hearted all the way along, because you've set up that expectation with your viewers. And that's what I wanted to do. We are friends. And this is a good story. It's a nice story. It's not dark in any way at all. And I wanted to establish that right up front. And a combination of old footage, narrative, newer footage, and I also want you to think about the end. Okay, the end, I gave the audience enough time to think without giving them a conclusion. I did not say, this is how you should now be thinking. I just played the sequence. I found a piece of music that I thought had a little bit of a question mark, just a slight question mark in the air. It had a nice feel to it. Watch the video, and with those things in mind, because this is what I have done very recently in terms of my storytelling, and I'm quite pleased with it. Thank you so much for enjoying. Hope you've got this far in the course and you've enjoyed it as much as I have making it. And I wish you many, many days, months, and years of wonderful storytelling ahead. Thank you for being my guests. It's May 2013. This is the first day's shoot of a trip from the southern tip of Africa to the northern tip of Scotland, just 3 days before the sponsors cancelled.